19-year-old Ramel from Cebu City steps onto the Ireland's Got Talent stage with a kind of nervous courage that comes only from a lifetime of surviving hardships. His clothes are simple, the fabric faded from too many washings in a small plastic basin behind their tiny riverside shanty. His shoes are uneven, the soles softened by years of walking long distances because jeepney fare was often a luxury he couldn't afford. He stands beneath the powerful stage lights looking so out of place, like a fragile leaf in a storm, yet there is something fiercely determined in the way he clutches the microphone. The entire audience goes quiet, noticing his trembling hands, his thin shoulders, and the innocence in his eyes. For a moment, he seems to shrink under the weight of thousands watching him, but then he lifts his chin slightly as the judges study him. Simon Cowell leans forward with curiosity painted subtly across his face, sensing there is more to this boy than meets the eye. Ramel's voice is soft when he speaks, and he explains that he comes from a small barangay in Cebu where his mother sells grilled fish on the sidewalk just to keep their lights on. He shares how he used to sing inside jeepneys, hoping passengers would give him spare coins so he and his siblings could eat a proper meal. Every word trembles with humility, but his sincerity touches the audience deeply. Some whisper among themselves, others simply watch with compassion as Ramel nervously rubs his thumb against the old, cracked belt around his waist. When the upbeat guitar intro of an Elvis classic begins, the judges exchange surprised glances. The audience leans forward, expecting a shaky attempt by a boy far too shy and inexperienced for such an iconic legend. But the moment Ramel opens his mouth, the room freezes. A voice, a deep, controlled, mesmerizing voice, fills the entire studio, echoing with a tone shockingly similar to Elvis Presley himself. People gasp. A few fans in the crowd instinctively stand. Simon's eyebrows jump upward in instant disbelief, and Alicia brings a hand to her chest as if struck by the raw force of the sound coming from someone who looks so young and so fragile. With every note he sings, Ramel's confidence grows. His body straightens, his eyes sharpen with emotion, and for the first time since entering the stage, a spark of pride lights his face. The cameras zoom in on the microphone shaking slightly in his hand, but his voice holds steady, powerful, and soul-deep. It carries years of hunger, years of hope, years of watching his mother struggle yet smile at him anyway. His movements echo the style of Elvis, not exaggerated, not comedic, but honest, shaped from hundreds of nights watching old performances on a tiny second-hand phone with a cracked screen. The judges react in waves of surprise and awe. Simon sits further back in his chair, studying the boy with intense focus as if trying to understand how a life marked by poverty could form a voice so rich and electrifying. The Irish audience murmurs with astonishment, some already tearing up from the gravity of his story mixed with the magic of his voice. Ramel hits a smooth, impressive vibrato that ripples through the entire room, and the crowd erupts into cheers mid-song. His face glows with both relief and disbelief, as though he himself is surprised by how powerfully his voice has emerged tonight. For a boy who grew up singing for coins in jeepneys, standing on this massive stage feels unreal, like a dream he was never supposed to have, but now, with every breath he pours into the song, it becomes more real, more powerful, and more unforgettable. As Ramel continues singing, the atmosphere inside the Ireland's Got Talent studio transforms from simple curiosity to electric disbelief, a kind of stunned energy that vibrates through the crowd and the judges' table. The moment he glides into the next verse, his voice deepens, strengthening with an Elvis-like resonance that feels too powerful to come from a boy who looks so young and so frail. Alicia Dixon is the first to react visibly. Her eyes widen, then soften, before her hand slowly rises to cover her mouth as if she can't quite believe what she's witnessing. A shimmer of emotion begins forming in her eyes, not just because of Ramel's voice but because she can feel the pain, hunger, and hope that shaped it. The Irish judge beside her leans forward so intensely that her chair squeaks, her brows knitting together in disbelief as she whispers, barely audible, "This is unreal, this is absolutely unreal." Even the usually composed Simon Cowell shows cracks in his calm expression. He narrows his eyes, sits back, then suddenly leans forward again, elbows on the table, studying the boy with a seriousness reserved only for performers who are truly extraordinary. The cameras pan across the audience, some are wiping their eyes, some gripping the edges of their seats, others standing slowly, unable to remain still because the emotions piercing through the room are too strong to ignore. Rammel's voice hits a beautiful, rounded note that shakes the entire crowd, and simultaneously, his tears begin to gather in the corners of his eyes. He tries to blink them away, forcing himself to stay focused, but the memories of the hardships he survived, washing dishes in a small eatery, singing to passengers who sometimes ignored him, watching his mother break her back just to earn enough for a meal, surge into his voice with raw intensity. The emotional weight of his past pours through every note, turning his performance into something more than music. It becomes a confession, a cry, and a celebration all at once. Alicia finally loses control of her tears. She wipes them quickly, then again, frustrated that she can't hide how deeply moved she is. The Irish judge reaches for a tissue, her face softening with compassion as she watches the poor Cebuano boy command the biggest stage of his life with nothing but his voice. Simon exhales slowly, an unusual gesture of emotional release, his eyes locked onto Rammel as if trying to memorize every second of this unexpected miracle. At one point, Rammel attempts a classic Elvis run, and his voice doesn't just hit the note, it soars with a richness that sends a wave of gasps rippling through the room. Several people stand instantly. Someone in the back starts clapping mid-song, unable to hold in their excitement. The judges look at one another, stunned, silently agreeing that they are witnessing something rare and history-making. Rammel's hands shake around the microphone, not from fear now but from the magnitude of what's happening around him, the audience cheering, the judges crying, the lights glowing warmer, brighter, almost wrapping around him like a dream unfolding in real time. The music builds, and he pushes his voice harder, deeper, pouring the last of his strength and soul into the performance. His breathing grows heavier, his eyes wetter, his heart pounding beneath the thin fabric of his shirt. When he reaches the emotional climax, Alicia stands without thinking, tears streaming freely as she claps, urging him on. The Irish judge joins her, shaking her head in disbelief, her face a mixture of shock and admiration. Even Simon, who rarely stands mid-performance, presses both hands against the table as if grounded by the moment, his expression full of pride, awe, and something close to heartbreak. Every second becomes more intense, more emotional, more unforgettable, until the entire room is consumed by the powerful voice and the even more powerful story of a poor Cebuano boy who came to Ireland with nothing but a dream and suddenly found himself breaking through every expectation placed before him. The final note leaves Rammel's lips like a fragile prayer carried through the air, trembling with hope and exhaustion, and for a long, breathless second, the entire studio stands frozen in absolute silence. It feels as though time itself pauses to honor the moment, as if every beating heart inside the Ireland's Got Talent auditorium stops just to absorb the last echo of his voice. Then, all at once, the silence shatters, erupts, into a roaring explosion of cheers, applause, and emotional cries that shake the entire room. People stand instantly. Some shout his name. Others place their hands over their hearts as if trying to steady their emotions. Rammel stands on stage with his head bowed, chest rising and falling rapidly, his worn-out shoes planted weakly on the glossy stage floor. Tears roll down his cheeks, dripping onto the microphone he clutches as if it's the only thing anchoring him to reality. He cannot bring himself to look up. He cannot believe that this ocean of people, these strangers from another country, are giving him the respect and love he never received when singing for coins in crowded Cebu jeepneys. When he finally lifts his head, the blinding lights blur with the tears in his eyes, but through the haze he sees something he never imagined, all three judges on their feet. Alicia is crying openly now, unable to hold back the flood of emotion. She claps with trembling hands, her eyes red but full of pride. The Irish judge presses a tissue to her face, shaking her head in disbelief, her voice cracking as she calls out, "Rammel, that was incredible, absolutely incredible." The audience cheers louder, encouraged by her emotion. But the most surprising sight of all is Simon Cowell. He rises slowly, deliberately, still staring at Ramel with an expression that carries something deep, something powerful, something almost paternal. He nods once, the kind of nod that says everything without a single word. Ramel's lips tremble as he tries to speak, but the words don't come. All he can manage is a shaky whisper of gratitude, his voice breaking as he places a hand over his heart. Simon lifts a finger, signaling him to stop talking, and leans forward toward his microphone with a voice gentler than anyone expects. "Ramel," he says, pausing for effect, letting the weight of the moment settle across the room, "that was not just a performance. That was a moment the world is going to remember." The crowd screams in agreement, but before Ramel can even react, Simon steps back and slams his palm onto the golden buzzer. The sound echoes like thunder. A burst of gold explodes from above, showering the entire stage with brilliant shimmering confetti. The room erupts into chaos, joyful, emotional chaos, as Ramel falls to his knees, overwhelmed, sobbing into his hands, the confetti clinging to his hair, his clothes, his skin like golden blessings. The judges don't stay seated. Alicia rushes to the stage first, lifting the hem of her dress as she hurries across the steps to reach him. She kneels beside him, placing a hand gently on his back as he cries harder, unable to contain the flood of emotions that burst inside him. The Irish judge joins them moments later, helping Ramel to his feet, brushing confetti from his shoulders like a mother comforting her child. Simon walks onto the stage last, calm but deeply moved. He places a steady hand on Ramel's shoulder and looks him in the eyes with a mixture of pride and disbelief. "You earned this," he says softly, almost whispering, and Ramel breaks into another wave of tears. The audience continues chanting his name, louder and louder, filling the studio with a sound so warm and powerful it feels like the entire nation is embracing him. And in that moment, standing under golden rain, surrounded by people who finally see his worth, the poor Cebuano boy who once sang for coins realizes he has just changed his life forever.